So, as you know, I work on lawnmowers as a hobby business. And I've said many times that I just don't charge a lot of money. I mean, I don't think I would get them a lot of money if I charged more. I don't think I'd get a lot of customers, I should say, if I charged more. I think it's in this area, it's better to charge less and just do more work to make the same amount of money as I would. I don't know how to explain it. So if I charge 4 times the amount, which is what these big towns are charging, I think not as many folks would have their lawnmowers repaired. So I feel like I'm doing the community a service by reducing my prices, getting some work, and making sure everybody can afford to get their lawnmowers repaired. And I try to do a good job. I really do. I'm not always successful. I mean, sometimes things do come back or customers don't understand. But I always try to make sure that their machine is running, or I just tell them, look, I don't think it's worth fixing. Well, I'm going to take this video in a couple of different directions. When I started learning how to work on lawnmowers when I was very young, 9-10 years old. First time I worked on a lawnmower, and I don't know if I really worked on a lawnmower, but first time I learned anything about a lawnmower was Dad bought me a wheel horse, and it smoked really bad. Had a Kohler engine on it, and I think you could replace the cylinder sleeves back then. So one night we went down to the shop. Dad worked at a lawnmower repair shop after the bakery closed, and he replaced the sleeves in that thing, and I actually understood what he was doing. I'm sure I was just goofing off more than anything, but I did understand what he was doing. It made sense, even at 9 or 10 years old. Well, then Mom and Dad got a divorce shortly after that, after the bakery closed. And then my grandpa, he saw that I enjoyed working on him. So he was a carpenter. That's what he was a supervisor for a big St. Louis business. I mean, they worked like on the Checker Dome and stuff. So, but he saw that I had an interest in working lawnmower, so he encouraged that. So he helped me work on that wheel horse. He helped me build a lawnmower and just different things until he died. I think I was 13 when he died. So I had a huge interest. Well, years later, you know, I was in my 30s or so, I guess. I started messing with lawnmowers, not as a profession or anything, more like the neighbors would say, hey, you want to look at my lawnmower? Yeah, sure. Pay for the parts, buy me a bratwurst. You know, I didn't drink or anything, but, you know, the people would barbecue in town, and, yeah, well, I'll have a barbecue or something, you know. So, and it was a small town. It was 100 people. It was actually called a village. 100 people in that village. Gravel roads. I mean, it was set up like a city with blocks and the whole thing, but, you know, city blocks. But it was just, had a train that ran through right in the middle of town. So I would work on lawnmowers, and there wasn't a lot of business, but enough. Of course, Amazon wasn't a thing back then, or if it was, I didn't know about it. We had eBay, so there were sometimes they get parts off eBay, but most of the parts I had to go into town and buy parts from the lawnmower repair shop. So I don't know, that's how I learned all those little steps. And I, of course, worked on my lawnmowers all the time. And I flipped a lawnmower once. And so, you know, I felt like I really knew how to work on lawnmowers. Well, then I started doing it here, and I wanted to learn. Back then, they had what's called a flathead, and now they have overhead valves. So I didn't know what really, I mean, I saw a few back then. Actually, my lawnmower had an overhead valve. But back then, you would have to grind the valves if you wanted to adjust them if they're out of tolerance. Today, you just adjust them with a torque wrench and a wrench. Really simple nowadays. Although those old-time mechanics love those flatheads, I'm a big fan of these overhead valves. I think they're great. With YouTube being a thing, you can learn a lot of more efficient ways of doing things. You know, before, anytime I would change a belt, I would pull the deck out from underneath the lawnmower, and it was always a pain. You had to disconnect every little clip, and it was always a pain. Well, now I've learned off YouTube, hey, there's an easier way. Lift the front end, drop the front end of the deck. You only got to take out like 2 clips. It's so much easier. So, you know, you learn things, but I'm not learning things that, like, how to do something, how to, you know, fix a carburetor or clean a carburetor or anything like that. Of course, carburetors nowadays are significantly different than the carburetors back then, but they had the same principles and different. So the gas today is a lot worse than back then, with all this ethanol going through everything. It really chews up these, you know, it just rots in the carburetor. The thing is I won't take a job that I don't think I can work on. I just turned down a chainsaw the other day. It's an old McCullough, made back in the 70s. He brings it over, and I said, nah, I don't think I can work on that one. I probably could fix it, but I wanted to make sure there was parts available. That's the thing is if I break something or I don't understand something, let's just say I didn't understand how to fix something, and I started just putting parts on, or diagnose something, I should say. And I just started putting parts on. New carburetor, new ignition coil, new this, new that. I wouldn't charge the customer for all those parts. That's on me. I may take the parts back off. Let's say I put a carburetor on and realize, oh, it wasn't a carburetor, that didn't fix it. I may take the new carburetor off, put the old one back on. I may even send the old carburetor or the new carburetor back to Amazon, the ignition coil, send it back. But I'm not going to charge the customer for my time or for the learning curve. That's not on them. It was on me. I'm having to learn how to fix their lawnmower. But you always want to be upfront about your experience level on how to do things. Well, as you know, I get on Facebook a lot, and people are always getting on there saying, I got a customer, and I don't know what. And it's always the same thing. They don't know how to do something that seems like it should be pretty simple. Yesterday, guy gets on, I got a customer, and he couldn't even spell half the words correctly, which I'm not criticizing that. That's not the point. But there are tons of YouTube videos that tells you how to go through the electrical system of a lawnmower. And you got to have a multimeter. You got to have one. In order to work on the electric system on a lawnmower, you got to have a multimeter. And so, what does he do? He's replacing parts. I replaced the battery, but the old one wasn't bad. It had 12.7 volts, which is like new. I mean, it's fully charged. I replaced the ignition switch, but that didn't fix it. And I replaced the solenoid, and that didn't fix it. So he's just replacing parts. Now, he didn't say if he's sending them back to, but I assume he's not. I assume that he's going to charge for all this. So he's asking folks on Facebook, what do you think I should do? So I replied, well, I don't know what you should do, but what I would do is I'm glad I'm not your customer. Because if I was your customer, I would make sure that you had a multimeter and that you were qualified to work on my mower and that you had the ability to test for shorts or look for shorts, or you understood what a short was, that you knew how to diagnose a machine before you just started slapping parts on it to charge me for all these parts. Well, I got several people to give me a thumbs up. I mean, you always get a few of those. But then you get the guys like, why are you being so mean? So the moderator gets on and tells me, you know, there's something to say about being brutally honest, but most people focus on the brutality and not so much on the honesty. Well, no, I was being quite honest. I wouldn't take my mower to him. Don't get me wrong, he says. Mowers are important, but people are more important. Let's treat everybody with respect. Okay, I'm all for that. So let's start with the first customer, okay, I'm all for that. So let's start with the first person in the people chain. Customer. Okay, great. So the customer is the first person. You know, we got the mower and then the customer. So we got the customer. Customer is the first person in the chain. The second person is the mechanic. And the third person was me. The fourth person was the moderator. So I get chewed out for not treating the mechanic with respect. But I didn't see the moderator chewing out the mechanic for not treating the customer with respect. Where was his little chewing out? The customer has faith in you. I just Googled it. They don't have any knowledge about the lawnmower, so they bring it to you to fix. And they expect you to know how to fix it because you said, basically, you know how to fix it. Now, if they'd brought it over and said, I turned the key, nothing happens. If he would have said to the customer, which he may have, I don't know. He never indicated that after I replied, that I don't know how to work on electrical stuff, so I'm going to be trying to guess at this. Are you okay with that? If the customer said, yeah, sure, that's fine. Okay, great. But I'm sure he didn't. I told you about a story, and it's so aggravating. YouTuber gets on and does the live feed. First thing he says in the live feed is, had a weed eater today, and I didn't do any diagnostics to it. I didn't check anything. I just changed the carburetor, and it took me all day to change the carburetor. I had one laying in the shop. It was so I put that one on there, and I got it on there after several hours putting it on. Several hours for a weed eater. Wait, it should take like 10 minutes. And I tried to start it, wouldn't start it. Well, I went tried to investigate what was wrong with it, and I never did figure it out. So a buddy of mine called, and we were talking about that weed eater, and he says, well, did you check the cylinder to see if it was scored? By golly, I sure didn't. So I went out there and I took the muffler off, and sure enough, the piston was scored. Well, if you watch my videos, there's 3 steps to everything I do. I spray the carburetor with starting fluid. You could spray it with 2-cycle gas if you wanted, but the mix. And then you check for spark. If it doesn't start after that, you check for spark. And if that doesn't work, here's the thing is sometimes those pistons and cylinders can be scored and it will start. So you still don't want to work on it if it's got a scored piston. So you should that should be like the second thing you're checking. But since I have this endoscope, I take the spark plug out. And since starting fluid doesn't cost that much, I can spray some starting fluid in it. If it starts, great. Then I take the spark plug out. I can check for spark. At the same time, I can check for the scoring because I got the endoscope I can stick down in the hole. So that wasn't so bad. I mean, okay, fine. He put a carburetor on there. Learning curve for him, no big deal. But the weed eater is shot. So what does he do? He charges the customer $30 for the carburetor. You charge the customer $30 for putting a carburetor on a piece of trash? That makes no sense. I don't even understand this philosophy. And they all say they got years of experience. Well, if you got years of experience, then you know how to do these things. I don't understand the human race. I don't understand the psychology behind this, that I'm going to work on something. Well, I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. They get on Facebook and they see $100 an hour. Wow, I could do that. And so they start, charging $100 an hour. May take them 10 hours to replace an ignition coil because they don't really know why it doesn't have spark. But, $100 an hour. I don't charge $100 an hour. I get plenty of work, during this busy season. I'm making plenty of money, enough to keep me happy. But I'm not trying to get rich at it either. I don't know. I find it very frustrating. So if you'll click this up next box, take to a video over my other channel. Really appreciate it. Go check it out because that will help me make money. So I hope I can inspire you to be honest with yourself so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.